It's a new year. And if we're being honest, some of you are already feeling it slipping. Not because you didn't want it badly enough, and not because you're lazy, and certainly not because you failed before you even started, but because reality showed up early. The calendar flipped, but life didn't. Same job, same stress, same responsibilities, and same people pulling at you from every direction. And somewhere between the excitement of a fresh start and the weight of the real world, that familiar thought crept in. Here we go again. And this is usually the moment people disappear. They go quiet. They stop talking about their goals. They tell themselves they'll try again later. But here's the truth no one says out loud. This moment, right here, isn't proof that your resolution was wrong. It's proof that it just entered the real world. Look, change doesn't fall apart when things get hard. Change reveals itself. So if you're feeling resistance, friction, doubt, you're not behind. You're not broken. You're right on time, and you're not alone. Today, it's not about starting over. It's about understanding what happens after the excitement fades and how you stay when most people walk away. Let's talk about that. Are you ready? I am. I'm Jonah. I'm your person. Let's get to it. Happy New Year and welcome to the show. If you're a first-time listener, thank you so much for joining. And if you've been with me on this journey for a while, thanks for coming back. Don't forget to press subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss a show. This also helps the show to grow. Thank you. We love the idea of a clean slate or a fresh start, a moment where the past doesn't count anymore. That's why the new year feels so powerful. But here's the part no one prepares us for. The calendar changes, but your life mostly stays the same. Same responsibilities, same environment, same stressors, and same patterns waiting for you on January 2nd. And when that reality collides with the version of you that was supposed to be new, something starts to crack. Not because you're weak, but because the expectation was unrealistic. We tell people, new year, new you, without ever talking about what happens when the old conditions are still in place. That's where a lot of people don't fail, they fade. They slowly disconnect from the goal, from the vision, from themselves. And I want you to hear this clearly. This series exists for that window of time. The stretch where enthusiasm wears off, reality presses in, and most people feel like they're on their own. You're not. This is part 1 of a 3-episode arc designed to walk you through that pressure. Not past it, not around it, but through it. I'm here with you in the part most people don't talk about. And you and I are just getting started. There's a moment that shows up every single time you try to change your life. It's not dramatic, and it doesn't announce itself. It just quietly settles in. You wake up tired. Your schedule feels heavier than you expected. The excitement you had a week ago doesn't feel as loud anymore. And almost immediately, the mind starts negotiating. Maybe this wasn't the right time. Maybe I need to get a few other things in order first. Maybe this just isn't realistic right now. But here's what I want you to understand. That moment isn't resistance. It's reality. Change doesn't break when reality shows up. Change begins right there. Most people assume that if something is right, it should feel smooth, motivating, clean. But real growth doesn't happen in ideal conditions. It happens when your intention collides with real life. The problem isn't that things got harder. The problem is that no one told you it would. So, when friction shows up, people personalize it. They think, this must mean I'm not built for this. They confuse discomfort with incompatibility. But discomfort is simply the signal that you've left the idea of change and entered the practice of it. This is the exact point where most people slowly drift away. Not because they can't do it, but because they don't recognize this phase for what it is. Reality isn't here to stop you. It's here to refine you. It forces you to get honest, to adjust expectations, to move from who you planned to be to who you're willing to be consistently. And that shift, quiet, unglamorous, and uncomfortable, is where real momentum is born. And so here's your first challenge. For the next 24 hours, don't fix anything. Just notice when friction shows up. And instead of pulling back, stay present for one extra moment. That's it. That's how staying begins. All right, here in part 3, we're going to talk about why motivation was never the solution. Motivation gets a lot of credit. Quite honestly, too much credit. We talk about it like it's the engine of change. Like if you could just find the right quote, the right song, the right surge of energy, everything would finally fall into place. But motivation isn't the foundation. It's the spark. It's the spark. It shows up when things feel new, when the vision is exciting, when the cost is still theoretical. That's why January feels so powerful. There's hope in the air and very little friction yet. Motivation thrives in that space. But motivation disappears the moment effort becomes repetitive, progress feels slow, or life asks something else of you. Not because you're undisciplined, but because motivation was never designed to carry the weight. The mistake most people make is building their goals on emotional state. And emotional state changes. When motivation dips, people assume something is wrong. They think they lost their edge, their drive, or their chance. So, they wait to feel ready again, inspired again, like the version of themselves that started so strong. But sustainable change doesn't wait on feelings. It moves through them. The people who stay consistent aren't more motivated. They're more anchored. They rely on structure, identity, and intention rather than emotional momentum. They decide in advance who they're going to be when motivation leaves the room. And that's the part no one teaches you. If your plan requires you to feel good, energized, and inspired every single day, it will collapse the first time you don't. Not because you failed, but because the plan was fragile. This is where we shift from chasing motivation to building reliability. From asking, how do I feel today? To asking, what does the version of me who stays do next? That question changes everything. Because when motivation fades, and it will, what remains isn't failure. What remains is choice. And choice, practiced consistently, becomes power. All right, now let's talk about the expectation trap here in part 4. Most people don't abandon their goals because they lack discipline. They abandon them because their expectations were never built for reality. We don't realize it, but when we set goals, we quietly imagine ideal conditions. Enough sleep, enough time, minimal stress, supportive people, a clear head. And when life doesn't cooperate, which it rarely does, the plan starts to unravel. This is the expectation trap. We assume that if something is meant for us, it should feel manageable. That progress should feel clean. That effort should feel rewarding more often than it feels draining. So when stress piles up, when energy dips, when distractions multiply, people don't adjust the plan. They question themselves. Why is this so hard? Why can't I keep up? What's wrong with me? But nothing is wrong with you. What's wrong is expecting growth to happen in a vacuum. Most people aren't built to survive bad days. They're built for motivated mornings and open schedules. They don't account for exhaustion, conflict, boredom, or doubt. And here's the truth most people miss. Bad days aren't interruptions to the process. They are the process. If your plan can't survive stress, it won't survive life. This doesn't mean lower your standards. It means lower the fragility of your approach. Real consistency comes from designing goals that can flex without breaking, and goals that adjust without collapsing into guilt or all for nothing thinking. Progress doesn't disappear when the day goes sideways. It disappears when expectations refuse to bend. When you stop asking, "Can I do this perfectly today?" and start asking, "What version of this can I still do?" And you stay in motion. And staying in motion, especially on imperfect days, is what separates people who drift from people who grow. So here's your second challenge. Today, when something doesn't go as planned, don't abandon the goal. Shrink it. If you planned big, do small. If you planned long, do brief. If you planned perfect, do present or between good and great. The goal isn't to win the day. Let me say that one more time. The goal isn't to win the day. The goal is to stay in motion. Are you ready for part 5? Good. There's a version of you that shows up when things are going well. Focused, hopeful, committed. That version gets a lot of attention. But the version of you that actually determines your future is the one that shows up when things don't go according to plan. When the day runs long, when you're exhausted, when the motivation is gone and the outcome feels so far away. That's where identity takes over. Most people build goals around an aspirational identity, who they want to be when conditions are right. But life doesn't ask you who you want to be. It asks who you are willing to be under pressure. And when that pressure hits, a lot of people don't quit intentionally. They disconnect. They stop seeing themselves as the kind of person who follows through. And once that identity cracks, behavior follows. This is why willpower alone doesn't last. Behavior is downstream from identity. And if you believe you're disciplined only when you feel strong, then exhaustion becomes a reason to stop. If you believe you're consistent only when things are smooth, then stress becomes a disqualifier. And there's another way to define yourself. What if your identity wasn't, "I always do this perfectly," but "I don't disappear when it gets uncomfortable"? That shift is small, but it's crazy powerful. Because the goal isn't to perform at your best every single day. The goal is to remain in a relationship with the goal, even on days when you don't like how you're showing up. Identity under pressure sounds like this. I'm someone who stays. I adjust. I return without judgment. That identity doesn't collapse when you miss a day or stumble. It absorbs the hit and keeps moving. And over time, those small acts of staying do something profound. They rebuild trust within yourself. Not through intensity, but through presence. Not through perfection, but through continuity. And that kind of identity, that's unshakable. All right, here in part 6, we're going to talk about staying power beats starting power. If you take away anything from this episode, this is the one I really want you to hone in on. Starting is easy. Starting feels clean, it feels exciting, it feels like possibility. That's why so many people are great starters. But starting doesn't change your life. Staying does. Staying when progress feels slow. Staying when the excitement wears off. Staying when no one is watching and the results aren't obvious yet. That's the difference most people never learn. We celebrate beginnings, but we're transformed by endurance. Starting power is fueled by emotion. Staying power is built through repetition. And repetition doesn't care how you feel. It responds to what you practice. This is why dramatic beginnings often lead to dramatic endings. People go all in at the start, exhaust themselves, and then disappear when they can't sustain the pace they set. But sustainable change, it isn't loud. It's quiet. It's unremarkable. It's often invisible to everyone but you. Staying power looks like showing up at 60% and calling it enough. It looks like continuing without applause. It looks like choosing consistency over intensity. And here's the truth most people don't hear. You don't need to go harder. You need to go longer. When you reduce the pressure to perform and increase your commitment to remain, something absolutely shifts. You stop negotiating with yourself every day. You stop asking if you feel like it. You already decided. Staying turns effort into identity. Identity turns actions into habits. Habits turn time into transformation. Not all at once, but inevitably. And the people who change their lives aren't the ones who start strong. They're the ones who refuse to vanish when it gets ordinary. And here's your third challenge. Choose one action connected to your goal that you can repeat even on your worst day. Not the ideal version, the durable version. Commit to that and let staying do the rest. Before we go into part 7, I wanted to mention something. Every once in a while, I get a listener to say, all I do is fluff things up. I understand that. I get that. But I'm in total disagreement. What I'm doing is providing perspective. And so when I'm breaking it down the way I do, it's because I've thought about it. I've researched it. I've practiced it. I've coached it. I've seen it in other people and how it can be successful. So if it feels like fluff, get past that, because the research has been done and it's been proven statistically that if you apply these methods, they can certainly work. Now, on to part 7. You didn't fail. You arrived. There's a moment in every attempt at change where the story shifts. It's the moment when the excitement is gone, when the plan feels heavier than you expected, when the version of you who was so certain on day 1 feels so far away. And most people misread that moment. They think it means they failed, that they weren't cut out for it, that they're repeating the same cycle again. But that moment isn't failure. It's arrival. It's the point where change stops being an idea and starts becoming a relationship, one that requires honesty, patience, and presence. You didn't mess this up. You didn't fall behind. You didn't miss your chance. You made it to the part that actually matters. This is where growth stops being about proving something and starts being about practicing something, where you stop chasing the feeling of a new you and begin building with trust with the version of you who shows up when things are imperfect. Most people never get here consciously. They disappear right before this moment, not because they're incapable, but because no one told them that this phase would feel like doubt instead of victory. But you stayed, and you're here, and you're listening, and you're willing to accept the challenge than to fall prey of the naysayers or the negativity. And staying changes everything. It changes how you see effort. It changes how you respond to setbacks. It changes the story you tell yourself about who you are. You don't need to be relentless. You don't need to be extreme. And you don't need to reinvent yourself. You just need to be in that remaining space in the process long enough for you to reshape you. This episode isn't the end of anything. It's the beginning of a deeper conversation, and one that challenges the idea of new year, new you altogether. Because real change doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself quietly in the moments you choose not to disappear. And if you're still here, listening, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. As we close the show, I want to leave you with this message. If this episode resonated with you, take that as a signal, not to do more, but to stay. This was part 1 of a 3-episode series designed to walk you through the stretch of the year where most people fade, drift, or quietly disconnect from what mattered to them. Next up, we're going deeper. In the next episode, New Year, New You is a lie. Here's what actually works. We're going to dismantle the pressure, the guilt, and the unrealistic expectations that sabotage real change and replace them with something grounded and sustainable. And in the episode after that, New Year, New You, why most people disappear and how not to, we'll talk about how to stay connected to your goals even when life gets loud, messy, and demanding. You don't have to do this alone. I'm here with you through it all. DM me if you'd like some extra support. If this helped you, do me a favor. Like the episode, subscribe to the show, and share it with someone who might need to hear it right now. That's how this message reaches the people it's meant for. And for more content, reflections, and conversations between episodes, make sure you're following me on all my socials. Just type in the full name of the show and share your wins with me. I'm Jonah. And if you're still here, you're doing better than you think. For now, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And I can't wait to share the next episode with you. Challenge accepted? Good. See you next time.